Hello, YouTube. Um, we just passed or rather, yesterday, and by yesterday I mean 15 minutes ago, because I'm one of those people that stays up way too late. Yesterday was August 18th, 2020. Um, so on August 18th, 1920, was the day that the 19th Amendment was passed. The 19th Amendment, as we all know, um, gave women the right to vote. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about um, where we are in terms of gender equality, feminism, and women's role in society as a whole. Now, as you can probably tell from my accent, I am from the USA, so you'll have to forgive me if anything I say here doesn't correspond to your particular country, or your particular part of the world. So, generally speaking, I think feminism has worked. Feminism, there were several waves of feminism. The major concern for the first wave was the right to vote. The major concern for the second wave was the sexual revolution and allowing women to join the workforce and not be forced into being a stay-at-home mother. Those are slight simplifications. I mean, obviously, some issues overlap, and there are other issues that the first and second wave dealt with. But that is my best encapsulation of what those two movements, the main concern of those two waves of feminism. And so it's quite amazing, if you really think about it, how far we have come in approximately 100 years. It feels weird to me to say that I lived to see the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, because the 100 years ago is nothing in terms of history. It's a shame that it took this country that long to give women the right to vote. And throughout history, women have been treated terribly. They've been second-class citizens. They've basically been the property of their fathers and then the property of their husbands. They weren't allowed to work outside the home. Many of them died in childbirth before, due to pregnancies foisted upon them by their husband, before modern medicine decreased the amount of pregnancy deaths. They were given no education, at least no formal education. But now, women are overtaking men in almost every field. Women are overtaking men in academia. They are overtaking men in the law. They are overtaking men in medicine. And that goes to show that the mental equality between the sexes, there's no there's no psychological data that illustrates that men or women are intellectually inferior to the other. So in case you were curious about the actual data, but the fact that women are catching up to and surpassing men in so many professions just attests to that fact. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Women are basically 50% of the planet, so I'm glad to live in a world where women are able to have their say in various positions, in various professions, because that they deserve it, and I think our society, well, human society overall, will be better off if men and women are able to participate in kind. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that women, or that we've completely overcome our past, or that women don't have issues they're still facing. Of course, in the third world, there are many problems. I'm almost certain there are still countries that don't allow women to vote. In certain countries, genital mutilation is a problem. Child marriage is a problem. Honor killings are a problem. There are places where women don't get to choose what they wear. They're forced to cover up. So, in that sense, feminism is still needed because the whole world has not agreed to the idea that both men and women have certain rights. Now, as for the first world, women there still have issues. Abortion restrictions. In my country, anyway, women aren't allowed, or women don't have universal birth control. They have to pay for birth control. Domestic violence is a problem. Now, that is a problem for both men and women, but the majority of domestic violence victims are women. Human trafficking, sex slavery, forced prostitution, or being forced to be in pornography. All of those are problems. Again, human trafficking. Some men are actually human trafficked, or some men are victims of human trafficking, but most of the victims of human trafficking are women. Our society probably doesn't recognize stay-at-home mothers in the way it should. Sexual assault and harassment, especially in the military, is a problem. Again, also an issue for men, but less of an issue for men and more of an issue for women. Sexism in Hollywood, think of Harvey Weinstein and Louis C.K., although those aren't, or Bill Cosby, although maybe I shouldn't throw Louis in there. His indiscretion wasn't as bad as the indiscretions of the other two men. And then just, casual, everyday sexism. So, Sigmund Freud who many feminists do not like that guy, but he came up with this idea of penis envy. And what I wish I could say to Freud is, I think he should have taken it a step farther. It's like, okay, you can say maybe there's penis envy, but I think there's also definitely vagina envy. I think a lot of the issues in society have to do with men being uncomfortable with women, or envying women's ability to give birth, or envying women's beauty, or envying perhaps women's grace and empathy when dealing with other people. So there is there are certain things that women have to deal with, which aren't life-threatening, or aren't the worst thing in the world, but they're definitely uncomfortable. They are definitely unfortunate, and we should try to move past those things. But I do think it's important to acknowledge the progress that we have made. And I was thinking about this earlier today. So there are several prominent people of the alt-right, alt-light clique on the internet, and several of them are women. And so I bring this up because I think their existence proves that feminism worked. What do I mean by that? So what I mean by that is some of these women can say, well, the sexual revolution failed. Women should focus on being a mother and a wife. Women shouldn't be sleeping around so much. Women have kind of lost their way, or society rather is not really teaching women how to be happy and healthy, and we need to return, so to speak, to the wisdom of the ages, or return to traditional gender roles, because that is truly where people feel fulfilled. But feminism gave those women the freedom to criticize feminism. So, throughout most of human history, there was just no question. The women had no say, that they had to be stuck in these traditional gender roles. There was no debate. There was no discussion. That was just it. The women had to accept it, or that there would just be massive issues for said women who refused to do whatever it is the men expected them to do. But we live in a society where women, generally speaking, are given that choice, right? They are allowed to say, well, I want to focus on a career, or I want to be a stay-at-home mother, or I want to try to balance those two things. So that's the irony with a lot of these people who are like, or especially a lot of these women who are like, feminism is cancer, because they are given, because feminism gave them the freedom to rail against feminism. So that's my proof that feminism has been successful. I think that's pretty hard to refute, but I'm, be curious what other people have to say about it. And I'll say a few more things and then I think I'll wrap up. So, one thing, obviously, I'm not a woman, as you can see. Uh, so, I don't have that personal subjective experience of being a woman. Um, so, forgive me if I am not saying things that might be obvious to me if I had been born female. And then the other thing, um, there was another wave of feminism called the third wave, um, which I am less sympathetic to. I know I look like a neckbeard on the internet, so I'm not going to start posting like anti-feminist videos anytime soon because that would just be too real. Um, but certain women of the of third certain third wave feminists are concerned with things like um, the how female video game characters are sexualized. Um, they are concerned with uh, uh, or they are not accepting of trans women. Those people are called TERFs, exclusionary radical feminists. Um, they are concerned about, or they think that pornography itself is a, a misogynistic, degrading genre. Now, again, you know, it's horrible, it's horrendous if someone is forced into that situation, right? So if again, if it goes back to say human trafficking, if someone kidnaps them and then forces them to star in a porn film, that's obviously horrific and awful. Um, and or if a woman is just so down and out that she can't find any other career aspect, any other career possibilities. That's unfortunate, and women, we need to try to create a society where women shouldn't have to go into porn just to make ends meet. But if someone wants to star in pornography or wants to direct pornography or whatever, as long as it's within the bounds of the law, there really is nothing wrong with that. And I just don't agree that it's inherently a misogynistic, degrading institution. And then a lot of women, third wave feminists, bring up the gender pay gap. Now, the gender pay gap has been debunked because what people do is they take the aggregate of what all men make, and then they take the aggregate of what all women make, and they say, well, women earn 75 cents to the man's dollar. But there's more to the story there. It doesn't end there. It's not as if I have the one job and then a woman has the same job and they're literally paying the woman less than me just because she's a woman. That's not how it works. Those statistics don't take into account the behavioral differences between men and women. So maybe more men or more women take more time off due to wanting to have kids and raise a family, for example. Or maybe women are more likely to go into less lucrative careers, such as teaching, rather than becoming a CEO of some company. So, don't believe. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. You can do your own research, but it's not true if someone tells you that. It's because that's just a too simplistic way of viewing it. That doesn't take into account just behavioral differences between sexes. So I'll just wrap up by saying I'm glad to live in a world where um, women are doing as well as they are. Um, you know, I'm not one who's crying tears of joy over this, but the Democratic nominee for the president, Joe Biden, um, did give us a woman vice president. That is, it has to be said, historic. So I'm just, I feel like I'm going to be a better person, and I feel like just society as a whole is going to be better because we give women opportunities now that they could never have dreamed of 50, 75, 100, 200 years ago. And maybe sometime I'll make more videos about how gender and sex plays into politics and whatnot. It's definitely a there's a lot to say. But again, I just wanted to make this video to acknowledge the milestone we've passed, acknowledge that acknowledge the progress that we've made, and the success that women as a whole are seeing, while also acknowledging the areas where we could still work on making things better. I hope that was a thorough enough analysis and a fair enough analysis. Let me know in the comments below if you liked, or what you liked about what I said, what you disliked, just your thoughts in general. So thank you for listening, and take care.